Welcome everybody. How y'all doing? Michael Laidler here. I'm so excited to be here with you guys on the Inspired to Lead series. I'm going to be talking about communication and connection. We already had a wonderful lineup today where we heard, well, not today, but let me take a step back. Where we heard the past few weeks, we heard Leroy talk about leadership, Denicia talk about identity, and Chris talked about intentionality. And then we're going to wrap it all up with Connie talking about accountability and mentorship. So my goal is kind of like Chris's, maybe not as long. I hope to have a nice, impactful presentation with you guys. I'm so excited. I hope that we can get through this with the enthusiasm and excitement that this businessmen and women of color has. Thanks, Annie. Thanks for having us on this. Thanks for allowing me to have a chance to connect with your audience. So we will go ahead. I'm going to pop up a few screens to make sure I can see everybody's comments. Just want to make sure I can see everything. I'm going to pop my name up on here for you guys, just so you guys don't forget who I am. Pop up the title that we're going to be talking about, communication, and we will jump right into it. As you have questions, post them. Comments, post them, guys, and I will try to do my best to keep up with it. Because as the title says, communication as well as connection goes a far way in what we do as leaders every day. It's part of leadership. It's part of your identity. It's part of intentionality. It's part of mentoring. What we do every day is we lead. And we connect. But I can tell you from my experiences before I became intentional, as Chris talked about last week, I thought I could just go into presentations and just start talking. Whether it was a public speaking occasion, whether it was a meeting at work, whatever it was, I always thought it was okay just to walk in the room and start talking. But then I started doing that thing called reading. And I realized that it wasn't the best thing to do when you're just walking right into the room and you just start talking. You don't get that connection with people. And there's a few areas we're going to talk about. If you see me looking over here to the left, it's just because I'm going to make sure I hit all my talking points. So I just want to make sure I cover all of that. I want to make sure that I communicate all that with you guys. So the 3 points we're going to talk about today when it comes to communication and connection, the first one is connection is all about others. Yes, it's not about us. This interview, this Facebook Live I'm doing right now, it's not about Michael. It's about you. It's about what you receive from this message. The next one's going to be, it's more than words. Chris talked about it, and I was so happy that he didn't go too deep into that part. But I have some numbers I want to share with you guys and kind of explain to you guys that our words aren't everything. They're a part of the equation, not a big part like Chris talked about. But we'll kind of dive into that as well, a few of the numbers and how it relates to us as leaders. And then the final part is you have to communicate with clarity. You have to be able to give your message to people. You have to be able to tell them what you're thinking, but in a manner for them to understand. So the 3 areas, the 3 talking points we're going to have is it's all about other people when you're communicating and connecting. It's all about using more than just your words, and it's about communicating with clarity. A few of the books that I reference for this, and you're going to kind of hear, maybe some of you have read them. One book is Everyone Communicates If You Connect by John Maxwell. Another one will be Lincoln on Leadership. And if you haven't read that one, that's one of those that somehow I always find myself going back to. And the third book is The 12 Disciplines of Leadership Excellence. So when you hear me use certain phrases, if you all have read it already, then you know what I mean. And if not, put a comment in there. Or go look up the book. Audiobook, Amazon. I mean, nowadays I usually get books for $5 or $6 just to make sure I have it in my or in my bookshelf, as you notice back there. So as we go along, I'm so excited to be here with you guys. I'm so thrilled that I have this opportunity once again just to feed you guys, continue on this process that Chris Jordan has created for us with Inspired to Lead. Quick shout out for the people that commented. Thank you, Hope Speak, Connie, and Talita. Thank you for joining this interview so far, this Facebook Live. I'm so happy, and I'm just gonna start hitting you guys with some facts. Hopefully, I don't bore you too much. That's my goal, is not to bore you too much. I'm gonna throw a few stories in there, and I'm gonna try to keep this as upbeat and as up tempo as I can. So let's start off with the first one. It's all about others. When Think about it, guys. I could think about when I first started doing presentations, and I'm gonna think about a time when I was a lieutenant. I was told to go ahead and teach our annual training, and what that is every year we teach for about 2 to 4 hours, and we're supposed to present information that's about our job, our normal duties. And the very first time I presented, all I can think about was, how am I going to do? What information am I going to give? How are the people going to receive me? Do I know everything? And if you guys realize it, listen to what I'm saying. I, I, I. At that time, I never took the step back. I never thought, well, what do the people need? What do they want to learn? And what I found out is I wasn't able to connect with them. Yes, I was talking. Yes, I knew how to articulate a few words, but I wasn't feeding into them. I wasn't bringing them in. So what ends up happening when you don't connect? I know what happened to me. People playing on their phones, people taking bathroom breaks for 15, 20 minutes, people just leaving. And it wasn't because my information was bad. It's because I didn't connect with them. So when we're thinking about how we connect with people, we have to think about a few different areas. There's 4 areas we have to think about when we're thinking about other people. And I'm just going to read from my notepad. So if you see me looking down, I say excuse me now. But the point is to make sure you guys get the exact answer that I'm trying to give you. The first one is, do you care for me? Do you care for me? When people think about that question, they think, well, does this speaker really care about what I think? And I can tell you, during that time when I was a lieutenant giving those presentations, I didn't really care for their thoughts. I mean, I'll be the first one to say it. I didn't know that speaking that was required. I didn't know I was required to go and tell them or realize what they were doing. That was on me. So I went through presentation after presentation, just trying to give my message out or give the message of the organization. I never tried to actually connect with the people, try to feed off of them, so to speak. I thought, you know what? If they're looking my way, I must be doing all right. I must be doing the right thing. But in all actuality, I really wasn't. I wasn't doing what I had to do to be successful. The next question is, can you help me? Can you help me? And what I realized with that is people have to know, what can you do for them? That message that you're giving, what is the reason behind it? Is it really for their benefit? And when I mean their benefit, the individual, not the organization. Because we have a role as leaders, as speakers, as instructors, facilitators, whatever word you want to use when you stand in front of and talk in front of people. We have a responsibility to help them out, help them unlock their goals, help them get to the point they need to. So people are sitting there thinking, just like you're probably thinking right now, well, what Michael's talking about, how's that going to help me today? And I'll tell you, just think about that question next time you go speak. When you're sitting there or standing there giving your presentation, what are you actually doing at the time? Are you just standing there watching? Are you just standing there just thinking in your mind, well, I just got to get this done? I mean, if you think like that, it's going to be very hard for you to connect with them. And the third question, can I trust you? Oof. That could be such a tough question. Can I trust you? Can the information coming out of your mouth to those people's ears, can it be trusted? Are you walking the talk, or are you just talking the talk? Because there's two different things, especially when you're out in the business world. Because people really want to know if whatever you're saying is truthful. They don't want you to just start talking and say, well, Michael doesn't know what he's talking about. He's never connected with people. He's never communicated with people. So you have to be able to say, can I trust you? And you have to think of it from that person's viewpoint. So when you're thinking about how you can connect with people and how it's going to be about them, remember the three questions I proposed. Do you care for me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? Do you care for me? Can you help me? Can I trust you? All questions that will help people be more connected to you. The next point, and like I said, Chris kind of touched on it when he talked about intentionality, is going beyond the words. I don't know how to say it any clearer, but the number that Chris choosed, and it's actually from John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, 7% of your 7% of what you do is just words. 93% is nonverbal. Those other two percentages, 38% is the way we say it, and then 55% is the way people hear it and the way they see it. So you can give the best message with the best words. You can have the best body language. You can have the best everything. But if the people aren't receiving what you're getting, then you're just going through all that process without anything. So you have to find ways to make sure that people are receiving your message. You have to make sure that they're connecting with what you're saying. If not, you're just going to go up there and give meaningless presentations. So you have to be able to connect. And I really discovered that when I joined Toastmasters, about really feeding off the people, seeing if they understand what I'm saying. Because a lot of times you can, one, look at people's faces and see if they're interested, if they're smiling, looking up, being attentive. But also there's a process in there called, there's a part of the program where people do evaluations. And based on the evaluation, lets you know how well you did, especially if they give you an evaluation exactly like your presentation. You actually knew that they felt what you were saying. And you can a lot of times tell the way people respond to you on how effective you are. So when you're thinking about your presentations, when you're thinking about connecting with people, remember there's more than just words that are involved. It's about the way you say it and how people feel about it. There's 4 areas that I look at when I look at going beyond the words. And those 4 areas are what people see, what they understand, what they feel, and what they hear. So those 4 areas are going beyond the words. Because what people see, for example, if I came here or if I was on this Facebook Live with a cutoff shirt and a bandana on or something that wasn't necessarily business professional, you guys, that's what you're going to see when you first see me come on air. You're like, well, this guy, maybe he's not taking this serious. Maybe Michael's not the one to be doing this. In all actuality, I am taking it serious, but sometimes our initial appearance can really go a far way, and we all know that. We've all heard first impressions are everything. Some people say the first 7 seconds people are gonna be able to tell if you're gonna get a deal or not. First 12 seconds just depends on the party and the study. So first things first, you have to be visually prepared to give your message. The next thing is what they understand. If you guys notice, I'm not a big word person. If you hear a big word out of me every once in a while, it's rare. But if people don't understand what you're saying, if you're using terms, phrases, acronyms, we don't want to talk about acronyms, but if people are using those kind of things too frequently, people aren't picking up what you're saying. So you're not going to be connect with them because it ain't that they're not smart. It's just that you're using terminology that they don't understand. So in order to connect with them intellectually, you have to understand your audience. You have to understand the words that they can use. You have to be able to understand the words that they need to hear in order to receive your message. The third thing, or the third area, is what they feel emotionally. People, depends on what you say, they have different reactions to it. And you have to be able to understand that when it comes to connecting with people. You have to be able to say, okay, when I provide this particular story, or when I say these certain phrases, what kind of reception am I going to put that person in? What kind of emotional attachment are they going to have? So when you're giving your story, when you're giving those presentations and you're trying to connect with people, You have to make sure you understand your audience. And I'm not going to give too many. I'm not going to give an example on that, but we all know there's stories that are inappropriate for certain situations. And if you've ever given one of those, which I unfortunately have one too many times, then you lose your audience pretty quickly. And then obviously what people hear, that's the verbal side to it. So you need to make sure that whatever you're saying to those people, to the people, your audience, you want to make sure that you're giving them the best message you can through these areas. So to go beyond the words, you have to understand what people see, what they understand, what they feel, and what they hear. 4 areas. 4. And the last part is communicate with clarity. Over 85% of managerial success, 85%, that means there's only 15% left. Over 85% is determined by clear expectations when you communicate. Wow. So think about how many times we've taken over a leadership role. Think about how many times we've become a manager, positional manager. And we didn't set clear expectations from the beginning. And then when we don't set clear expectations, what happens after that? We're sitting in the office doing a review, giving an evaluation, a feedback, a performance evaluation, and the person has no clue what we expected. And that falls on us as leaders. So we have to make sure whatever we tell them, whatever our expectations are for that person to succeed, we tell them. We say, you know what, Michael, I want you to write 5 books in the next year. Oh, okay. That's an expectation. Or, you know what, I want you to write a couple of books and we'll see what happens. There's no clarity in that. And so many people are lost because they don't have that level of clarity that they need. And they're faulted, or they're they're, lack of a better term, they're punished because they didn't get the job done. And it's because as leaders, we didn't provide the answers that they needed. We didn't provide them with the direction that they needed from us. So we have to ensure that we communicate clearly. We have to communicate with clarity in order to effectively get our message across. And there's 3 ways that you can increase the chances. Not guaranteed, because we all know there's no guarantees in life, but there's 3 ways that we can enhance our abilities to communicate with clarity. They are write well. And I'm going to touch on that one a little bit more. Speak on your feet, and learn how to sell your ideas. Write well. All right, guys. I'm not saying everybody needs to go get a degree. I'm not saying people need to spend $20,000, $30,000 on education, but as leaders, there's an expectation from us to be able to write well. We should have some level of grammar that we can use when we're writing. I'm not saying we all have to be doctorate level writers. I'm not saying that we have to be able to write dissertations or theses, but we have to be able to write. We have to be able to clearly give our expectations on at least 1 page, 250 words. We have to at least be able to give that for people to understand what we want. And we have to put in there exactly what we're looking for. Like I said earlier about writing the books, if you want someone to write 5 books, write that. Say by April 2019, you need to have 5 books written. You got a deadline in there and exactly what you're looking for in that year. Don't just say, you know what, in the next year, the next couple of months, I want a couple of books. Because you're going to be very disappointed. And they're going to be very disappointed with you. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about how you write. Make sure you write it clearly enough to offer your message to them, to make sure that they're able to completely understand what you're doing. Next, speak on your feet. You have to be, you don't have to be a public speaker, but you have to be able to articulate your message. And that goes back to what we talked about, going beyond the words. There are certain areas that we really need to focus on, And being able to articulate, being able to explain verbally as well as written what we want from people goes a far way. Because there's, at some point, no matter what you do in your life, you're going to have to speak to people when you're a leader. You're going to have to talk to them. You're going to have to praise them. You're going to have to give them areas to improve on. So if you're not able to speak on your feet and speak clearly to them in order to deliver your message, then you're going to be playing behind the plate. You're not going to be able to be successful. So you're going to have to make sure that you're able to vocalize what you expect out of them. And the third part of communicate with clarity is learn how to sell your ideas. I'm not saying that you have to be a marketer or a car salesman, but you have to make people believe. You have to make people believe. If you want them to follow you, if you want to be the best leader you can be for them, you have to make them believe what you're saying is true. And in all honesty, that comes with you. That starts off with you. You have to believe what you say. You have to be the first person to say, you know what? This is my vision. This is the organization's vision. This is what I believe in. I take it to heart. And then you go forward with it. And you sell that as best as you can. You find areas, points, ideas where people can understand what your ideas are. You have to make them know, okay, you know what? This isn't just Michael's idea. This just isn't Chris's idea. This isn't just a businessmen and women of color idea. This idea is for you. This idea is for everybody. It's to benefit the whole picture of people. It's just not one or two areas. It's everything. And I think when you're able to sell your ideas, you're able to articulate them in a manner that people understand them, you're able to show it, you're able to write it. That's when you see the most success. That's when you see your abilities, your leadership, your communication, all of that rise. When you have your ideas and you can tell people what they are, you can explain to them in writing, on your feet, or just in general. So when you're looking at communicating with clarity, you have to look at all those areas, because I know I've been, I'm trying to think. Let me think back to a time when I was communicated with minimum clarity. I can remember when I was a police officer and I was having a conversation with the lieutenant at the time, and I thought I was doing everything correct. Now, mind you, I was never told what to do. I just assumed that, you know what, showing up to work, writing some tickets, doing some reports, making a few arrests, I thought that was acceptable. I thought that's all I needed. However, when I went and talked to the lieutenant about, you know what, let me get a promotion, come to find out, it was a whole other story. They were like, well, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Now, we really didn't care about that. So, me, as the employee, I'm thinking in my head, why didn't somebody tell me this before? Why didn't you all tell me that these were the expectations? This is what you wanted. And what I found out is it wasn't that I was wrong or they were wrong, so to speak. It's just that there was a breakdown in communication. And we all know how it is when we break down that communication, because we have the leaders over here and the followers. And when that bridge in the middle is broken, that's when we see a lot of stuff go downhill. So for my time as a police officer talking to that lieutenant, I thought I was doing right that 6 months to a year before I spoke with him. But he never told me that he wanted to do X, Y, and Z in order to accomplish the mission or accomplish the goals. And I was just there just trying to use common sense, which apparently wasn't that common in his mind, but it was something that I tried to use in order to best enhance my abilities. It was something that I tried to use thinking, you know what, I'm doing the right thing. But there was so much time lost because there was no clarity in what the expectations were. So I end up suffering, they end up suffering, and I think that overall we actually lost some time, and it actually put a bad taste in my mouth for a while. And because of that, what did I end up doing? I stopped working as hard, lost performance, not as happy at work, looking at other jobs, and that's all because there was no clarity in the communication. And it's funny when I sit back and look at it now, or when I looked at it a couple of years ago, I'm like, man, who knows where I would have been in my life if the goals, the mission, the direction was just communicated with clarity. If I was just told, you know what, we need this. If you want to accomplish your goals, if you want to promote, if you want to make more money, if you just want to be happy in your job, we need exactly this right now. This is what we're looking for. And I think that if I was able to hear that, that would have went so much further with my development. And I would have been able to be that employee that I thought I was, but over a continuous amount of time. So with all those areas with it's all about others, going beyond the words and communicating with clarity, I know you all have some questions. Whatever questions you have, go ahead and throw them in the comment section, and I would try to respond to them with some impromptu speaking, as Chris may know what I'm talking about through Toastmasters, and I'll try to give the best answers that I can in the time allotted. We are currently at a little over 25 minutes, so I know we have some time. Some of the comments I see on here thus far, one from Annie, where it says trust is ultimate, and that's very true. Trust goes a far, far way in our roles as leaders. People, like I said before, people want to trust us. They want to trust somebody. It's just our job to build up that level of trust in order to become successful. And then Annie also wrote what I said earlier, and I will just put it on the screen for you guys so you guys can see it. It'll be right above my forehead. It's what they see, what they understand, and what they. Oh, it's written twice, so I'll just say. Let me look at my notes. What people see, what they understand, what they feel, and what they hear. That's how you go beyond the words, guys. And then Connie, I'll just throw hers up there on the screen so you guys can see her comment. Clarity and communication in any situation is important. Any. And Connie, you are exactly right. And we can even take a step back and not just look at the business world. What about our family? I know Chris talked a little bit about marriage, but I mean, think about how many marriages have failed or are failing just because there's no clarity. I mean, sometimes before we get married, shouldn't we have certain vows that we truly, all of us are on the same page on? Or let people know, you know what, at 5 years, I want to be this way. At 10 years, I want to be it that way. But clarity in any situation is very important, Connie. And I if there's a percentage over 100, I would say it, but there's really only 100%. So I 100% agree with you on that one. 100%. So do you guys have any questions that you guys like to talk about when it comes to communication? I will leave you guys with this quote by Abraham Lincoln, which I took out of Lincoln on Leadership when I was preparing for this Facebook Live, which states, communication creates meaning for people. Communication creates meaning for people. And just so you guys can see my clarification, communication creates meaning for people. Let me make that a little bit smaller so I can put it on the screen so you guys can see it. There you go, right there. Communication creates meaning for people. And this is Abraham Lincoln saying this in the 1800s. That's so important, guys. Communication is vital to all the areas that we've talked about so far in Inspired to Lead, whether it's leadership, identity, intentionality, and then going into mentoring. Communication is part of all of that. You have to be able to communicate as a leader. You have to communicate your identity. You have to be able to communicate when you are intentional. And then when you're mentoring and holding people accountable, you have to communicate your goals to them. You have to communicate your expectations. Because if you don't, then you're going to be lost. And then where are we going to really go with that at that point? So, in closing, I really appreciate Ann, I appreciate Chris, I appreciate the other speakers so far. You guys have set a tone not just for my Facebook group, not just my page, but also the businessmen and women of color page. And I think that the more chances we have to do this, the more chances we're able to feed into each other in this manner is what is going to make this world better. And yes, I think of it in the macro way. I think of the big picture because every day people are searching for this. I'm on the phones every day talking to people that don't have this kind of training. So I do thank all of you guys. I thank all the people that have commented thus far, because I'm going to say thus because I know a few people weren't able to make it just for various reasons. So I'm so excited. I was so happy to be with you guys. I look forward to doing more of these type of like Facebook live events. I'm also looking forward to hear what Connie has to say next week. So remember, guys, next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, Connie will be on to finish us out. So make sure you tune into her. Make sure you continue to follow the Businessmen and Women of Color page. Make sure you follow me too, Michael Laidler, which it says right there on the bottom of the screen. Make sure you keep up with us because we're all here trying to make a better community for everybody, because that's what we're designed for. Leaders love to lead, and that's what we do. We're all inspired to lead. So I'm going to go ahead, blank out my screen, put the inspired to lead photo back on there for a few minutes, and then I will log out. Thank you guys. You have a great day. Oops, wrong button.